The last day of Pompeii. It is the morning of August the 24th, in the year 79. The sun rises over the Bay of Naples, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. The water is calm. The fishing boats are already out, their sails white against the deep blue of the Mediterranean. On the slopes of Mount Vesuvius, the vineyards are heavy with grapes. It is going to be a beautiful day. The city of Pompeii is waking up. Pompeii is not a grand capital like Rome. It is a provincial town, home to perhaps 12,000 people. It is also home to countless dogs and cats and birds, to horses that pull carts through the streets, to the rats that scurry in the shadows and the lizards that bask on the sun-warmed stones. It is a city of life, in all its messy, beautiful, ordinary abundance. But Pompeii is prosperous, lively, full of the sounds and smells of a Roman city at the height of its power. The streets are paved with great blocks of volcanic stone, dark and smooth, fitted together with the precision that only Roman engineers could achieve. Raised stepping stones cross the roads at regular intervals, allowing pedestrians to cross without stepping into the filth that accumulates in the gutters. These stepping stones are spaced exactly to match the stride of a Roman cart. The width between the wheels was standardized, and the stones were placed so that carts could pass over them without difficulty. The Romans thought of everything. Deep ruts worn into the paving stones by generations of cart wheels tell the story of a busy, thriving commercial center. Some of these ruts are inches deep, carved over decades, over centuries, by the endless passage of iron-rimmed wheels. They are the fingerprints of commerce, the physical record of 1,000 market days, 1,000 deliveries, 1,000 ordinary journeys that together made up the life of a city. The streets have names, though the names we use today were given by archaeologists. The Street of Abundance. The Street of the Tombs. The Street of the August Ales. At the crossroads, public fountains provide fresh water, carried by aqueduct from the mountains miles away. The water runs constantly, splashing into stone basins, and anyone can stop to drink or fill a jar. Slaves fill great clay vessels and carry them back to their masters' houses. Children play in the overflow, splashing each other and laughing. The bakeries fire their ovens before dawn. You can smell the bread baking, the warm scent of wheat and yeast drifting through the narrow streets. In the Forum, the great public square at the heart of the city, merchants are setting up their stalls. There will be cloth from Egypt, spices from Arabia, wine from the local vineyards, olive oil from the farms that surround the city. The marble temples gleam in the morning light. The Temple of Jupiter dominates the northern end of the Forum, its columns rising against the blue sky. Nearby stands the Temple of Apollo, and the great covered market where fish and meat are sold. The baths are opening. The Stabian baths, the oldest in the city, welcome their first visitors of the day. Men gather in the exercise yard, wrestling and throwing a ball back and forth. Slaves stoke the furnaces that heat the water. Steam rises from the caldarium, the hot room, where citizens will soon sit and sweat and discuss the news of the day. Politics, business, gossip, all of it flows through the baths like water through the aqueduct. In a small house not far from the amphitheater, a woman named Julia is preparing breakfast for her family. She is perhaps 30 years old, the wife of a wine merchant. Her house is modest but comfortable. The walls are decorated with frescoes, scenes from mythology, delicate landscapes, a portrait of her husband in his youth. A small fountain gurgles in the central courtyard, the impluvium, catching rainwater in a shallow pool. Her 2 children, a boy of 8 and a girl of 6, play with a small wooden cart in the garden. Julia's husband, Marcus, is already at the docks. A shipment of wine arrived yesterday from the family vineyard on the slopes of Vesuvius, and he is overseeing its transfer to a warehouse near the Forum. The amphorae, the tall clay jars that hold the wine, are heavy, each one requiring 2 men to carry. Marcus watches carefully, counting, noting the condition of each jar. Business has been good this year. The vines on the mountain have produced an excellent harvest. The mountain. Vesuvius. It rises to the north of the city, green and peaceful, its slopes covered with vineyards and olive groves. The people of Pompeii do not think of it as a volcano. It has not erupted in living memory. It has not erupted in the memory of any civilization. The Greek geographer Strabo, writing a century earlier, noted that the mountain showed signs of having once been on fire, but no one in Pompeii worries about that now. The mountain is just the mountain. It is the source of their prosperity. The volcanic soil is rich and fertile. Everything grows well here. The morning passes quietly. The sun climbs higher. The city goes about its business. A teacher gathers his students in the shade of a portico and drills them on their Greek verbs. A painter applies fresh pigment to a wall in the house of a wealthy merchant, carefully rendering the features of Venus rising from the sea. A group of women sit in a courtyard, spinning wool and sharing news. A young man practices his oratory in the Forum, gesturing dramatically at an imaginary audience. His friends laugh and applaud. At the amphitheater, a crowd is gathering. Today there will be games, gladiators, perhaps, or wild animal hunts. The amphitheater of Pompeii can hold 20,000 people, more than the entire population of the city. People come from miles around for the spectacles. Vendors sell sausages and bread and cups of watered wine. The atmosphere is festive, expectant. But at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, something changes. A sound. A deep, rumbling sound, like thunder but coming from the ground rather than the sky. The earth trembles. Cracks appear in the walls of houses. Statues wobble on their pedestals. In the Forum, a column of the Temple of Jupiter shifts slightly, and a piece of marble crashes to the ground below. People stop. They look around. They look up. Mount Vesuvius is no longer green and peaceful. A great column of smoke and ash is rising from its summit, climbing higher and higher into the blue sky. It spreads out at the top like the branches of a pine tree, the very shape that Pliny the Younger would later describe in his famous letter to the historian Tacitus. The column rises for miles. It is visible from Naples, from Misenum across the bay, from every town and village for 50 miles around. The people of Pompeii do not understand what they are seeing. They have never seen a volcanic eruption. There is no word in Latin for what is happening. They stand in the streets, staring at the mountain, pointing, asking each other what it means. Then the ash begins to fall. It starts as a fine grey dust, almost like snow, settling on rooftops and streets and the shoulders of anyone caught outside. But it quickly grows heavier. The ash is not soft like snow. It is gritty, abrasive, hot. It gets into your eyes, your mouth, your lungs. People wrap cloth around their faces. They hurry through the streets, bent forward, shielding their eyes. Some run for the city gates, hoping to escape. Others retreat into their homes, believing the walls will protect them. Julia gathers her children. She does not know where her husband is. She prays he is already on his way home. She tells the children that everything will be fine, that their father will come, that they will leave together. She packs a small bag, some bread, a flask of water, a small bronze statue of the household gods that has stood on the family altar for as long as she can remember. She wraps it in a cloth and places it in the bag. Outside, the world is turning grey. The sun, which had been so bright just hours before, is now a dim orange disk behind the ash cloud. The streets are filling with pumice, small, light stones that rain down from the sky, accumulating on the ground with a soft clattering sound. The pumice is not heavy, but it is relentless. It piles up on rooftops. It clogs the streets. Walking becomes difficult, like wading through deep, hot snow. Still the eruption continues. The column of ash rises higher. Lightning flickers within the cloud, a terrifying display of nature's power. The ground shakes again and again. Buildings begin to collapse under the weight of the accumulating pumice. The roof of Julia's neighbor's house caved in with a terrible crash. She hears screams. Some people are leaving. They gather what they can carry and flee toward the harbor, toward the sea, hoping to find boats that will take them away. But the harbor is chaos. The sea has retreated, pulled back from the shore by the seismic disturbance. Boats lie stranded on the suddenly exposed seabed. The water churns and boils. Escape by sea is impossible. Marcus fights his way through the streets. The pumice is nearly knee-deep now. He slips and falls, cutting his hands on the sharp stones. He gets up. He keeps going. He must reach his family. He thinks of Julia. He thinks of his children. He thinks of the small bronze statue on the altar, the one his father gave him on his wedding day. He prays to the gods he has not prayed to in years. Night falls, but it is not night. It is the darkness of the ash cloud, blotting out the sun entirely. The city is plunged into a blackness deeper than any midnight. The only light comes from the lightning in the ash cloud and from the fires that have started in collapsed buildings. The air is thick with sulfur. Breathing becomes painful. Every breath is a struggle. And then, the pyroclastic surge. This is the deadliest part of a volcanic eruption. A superheated cloud of gas and ash and rock, moving at hundreds of miles per hour, racing down the mountainside like a furious river of death. The temperature inside the cloud exceeds 500 degrees. It kills instantly. There is no time to run. There is no time to scream. The first surge reaches Herculaneum, a smaller town closer to the mountain. Everyone there dies within seconds. The second surge sweeps down on Pompeii. It engulfs the city in a single, terrible moment. The people who remained, those who did not flee in time, those who waited too long, those who could not leave, they are buried in ash. Their bodies are encased, preserved in the exact positions they held at the moment of death. Julia and her children, huddled together in the corner of their garden. Marcus, just 100 yards from his front door, his arm outstretched as if reaching for his home. The gladiators in the amphitheater barracks. The priest in the temple of Isis. The baker whose loaves were still in the oven. The painter whose brush was still wet. The rich and the poor, the young and the old, the free and the enslaved, all of them, caught in the same moment, preserved for eternity. When the eruption finally ended, Pompeii was gone. Buried under 20 feet of ash and pumice, it vanished from the map, from memory, from the world. For more than 1,500 years, it lay hidden beneath the earth, a secret sealed in stone. It was not until the 18th century that archaeologists began to excavate the city. What they found astonished the world. The ash had preserved everything. The streets, the buildings, the frescoes on the walls, the mosaics on the floors, the furniture, the tools, the food, loaves of bread, bowls of fruit, jars of wine still sealed. And the people, or rather the spaces where their bodies had been. By pouring plaster into the cavities left by the decomposed bodies, archaeologists created casts of the victims, three-dimensional snapshots of the last moments of human lives. Today, you can walk the streets of Pompeii. You can stand in the forum where the merchants sold their goods. You can visit the baths where the citizens gossiped and relaxed. You can see the amphitheater where the crowds cheered. You can enter the houses and look at the frescoes on the walls, the colors still vivid after 2,000 years. And you can see the plaster casts of the people who lived there, the mother reaching for her child, the man trying to shield his face from the heat, the dog twisted in its final struggle. They were people just like us. They loved and laughed and worried and hoped. They woke up on a summer morning, looked at the mountain, and saw only beauty. They did not know that they were living their last day. The excavation of Pompeii began in the mid-18th century under King Charles VII of Naples. It was one of the first systematic archaeological digs in history. The excavators were astonished. The ash had preserved not just buildings, but life itself. Loaves of bread still in the oven, carbonized by the heat. A bowl of eggs, ready to be cooked. A fresco of a poet, his stylus pressed to his lips in thought. Graffiti on the walls, political slogans, love notes, crude jokes, the same things people write today. One graffito reads simply, Gaius Pumidius Diphilus was here. 5 words scratched by a man who lived 2,000 years ago and wanted to be remembered. He got his wish. The most haunting discoveries were the bodies. The ash compacted around the victims, and as their bodies decayed, they left perfect molds. By pouring plaster into the cavities, excavators created three-dimensional casts of the dead. A mother shielding her child. A man covering his mouth against the ash. A dog twisted in its final struggle, its collar still visible. These plaster figures are not artifacts. They are people. Moments frozen forever, of terror, of love, of the desperate will to survive. One cast shows two people embracing. We will never know who they were. But in their last moments, they held each other. That is what the volcano could not destroy. And perhaps that is the most haunting thing about Pompeii. It reminds us that the world can change in an instant. That everything we know and love and take for granted can be taken away in a single afternoon. That we should cherish every sunrise, every loaf of bread, every moment with the people we love. The sun still rises over the Bay of Naples. The water is still calm. The mountain is still there, green and peaceful on its slopes, still beautiful, still dangerous. And beneath the earth, Pompeii still sleeps. Waiting. Remembering. A city frozen in time, a story written in ash, a reminder that even in destruction, there is a strange and terrible beauty.